Good morning, everyone. I want to apologize just to start off about the technical problems we had with the 9 o'clock session. If you are really interested in the memberships and the offering that we have, don't worry. Everybody will be included as having attended that session. So I apologize about that. But we are so thrilled to have you all for our second volunteer engagement leadership convening. We started in 2020 and want to do this biannually, giving you all the opportunity, in addition to the trainings that we have on a fairly regular basis. The particular convening that we have now and that we had in 2020 in the fall is much larger in scale, concentrated opportunity for you all to have some continuing education. So we hope that you all enjoy all of the layers to the next several days. We do have that continuing education training, as I mentioned, throughout the year. So I hope that you all are on our newsletter, that you've registered for it. If not, you can go to volunteerflorida.org and register. That's when we share all of the information about those other opportunities for training. So real quickly, before we get into the research study, I had a couple of things from the welcome session that I just wanted to share with you all. So if you will be patient, we're going to go through a couple of things real quickly so that you all are kind of familiar with how the convening will go and what some of those next steps are going to be over the course of the next several days. So quickly, I do want to play a message from our CEO, Josie Tamayo. She is wonderful. She's been here for about a month, and we are so glad to have her. But she wanted to say a special welcome to you all. So we're going to do that right now.
Good morning. How is everyone? I am Josie Tamayo, the CEO of Volunteer Florida, and welcome to the 2022 Volunteer Leadership Convening. We at Volunteer Florida believe that service is such an incredible and important part of what makes Florida's communities safer, stronger, more resilient, healthier, and ultimately make our state the best place to work, live, and raise a family. Across the state, so many individuals have turned to Volunteer Connect, Florida's official volunteer opportunities platform, for ways to serve their communities, including virtual volunteer opportunities. Behind these projects is you, the volunteer leaders, engagement leaders that are here today. Volunteer engagement leaders are skillful in adapting to new circumstances, understanding the evolving needs of their communities, and continue to mobilize Floridians to serve. By serving and volunteering in our communities, we are not only helping the people of today, but we are inspiring a whole new generation to volunteer and serve for those who come after us. That is why I'm so excited that you are joining us for this conversation. Over the next 3 days, you will hear from volunteer experts from across our great state discussing important topics. It is my hope that you take away from this convening the knowledge and power, not only to inspire a new generation of volunteers, but to continue to inspire yourself in volunteering throughout our great state. Thank you for your work and your service to Florida. It is an honor to work alongside you, with you, as we make our communities the best they can be, stronger, healthier, safer, more resilient, and the best place to live in the United States. Thank you for joining us today for this conversation, and I will now turn it over to Ms. Jovita Woodrich, our Volunteer Services Director, who has put in so much time and effort to make this come to fruition and for this convening to happen. So good luck to you all. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your service to Florida, and have a wonderful day.
All right. So again, Josie Tamayo, our new CEO, again, just so glad to have her. Really just a strong advocate when it comes to fostering volunteerism in our great state. And so you'll be hearing from her plenty. She is traveling a lot, making sure that people understand the value of volunteerism, and just doing really great things for our state. So we're so glad to have her. Just really briefly, I know many of you are familiar with Volunteer Florida. Some of you are not. And I did want to just share a little bit about who we are. We're one of 52 state service commissions. So we have sister organizations all over the country. And we are established in statute here in Florida. And our primary goal, as with all of the other state commissions, is to administer AmeriCorps programs, which is a federal program, really extraordinary national service work where organizations receive grants and then AmeriCorps members do direct service work in their communities, really making some tremendous strides in solving problems, being part of the solution, and then fostering volunteerism. So those two components are all over the country. We're working hard to do that as state service commissions. Here in Florida, in addition to those two, we also have our emergency management function. We're part of the state emergency response team, and they have these kind of overarching functions. And we are the function that is volunteers and donations before, during, and after disasters at a high level. We work with our voluntary organizations active in disaster groups. Those are our VOAD groups. So certainly working very hard over the last several weeks to do everything that we can when it comes to Hurricane Ian disaster relief. And then we also manage the Volunteer Florida Foundation, and that's where the Florida Disaster Fund is housed. That's the official private fund for the state for disaster relief and other initiatives and efforts. So that's our work. My focus, of course, is the volunteer engagement leadership component, helping you all to grow capacity, have the training that you need to support your communities. And I love this job. I have been in it for almost 7 years, and you all do such tremendous work. And I really enjoy working with all of you and hope to continue to do that in the future. Those of you who I do not know, I hope to get to know and support you in any way that I can with the resources that we have. So just really quickly, in terms of the convening, I did want to show you, you have those menu options at the top right when you go to the landing page. And of course, you are either signed in or can sign in via that unique link. And if you look at the that top area, you see the Media Hub. We are going to have tons of resources available to you all. They'll be put up as our speakers share. Their handouts will be there. We have plenty of resources that they've shared, so we'll also have those items there. So please check back every day to see those items, save those links. They will be available for a month after the convening ends, and that's where the recordings will be housed for the next month. And then they'll go to the Volunteer Florida site and be there in perpetuity for people to view. The handouts, however, those are exclusive to those of you who registered here with Big Marker. So please make sure that you download those in the next month or so that you have those resources. The other thing I hope that you all do is make sure you have your virtual badge. And then you'll see on the right-hand side that you can filter. And I would love for you all to filter for your county if you're here in Florida. We actually have some folks from other states joining us, and so we are glad to have you all. Wanted to say hello to you. And I hope you get to know one another, connect with people. See who else is in your community that you can share ideas with, that you can network with. So I hope that you all take some time to do that. And then the last part, very quickly, of course, is the agenda, where we have all of the information for the next several days. All of our speakers, if you click, you can get their bios. And again, we are so sorry about the technical difficulties we had at the for the 9 o'clock session, but for now and from now on, you'll be able to see that Join Now button. It'll take you to the waiting room, and then we'll be live at the top of the hour for any of our sessions. So I want to go ahead and get into our survey. We are so excited to have had the opportunity to provide this kind of resource to the field. And so we partnered with the University of Florida to do this, and we saw that there's plenty of really great research out there about volunteerism kind of on smaller scales. But we really wanted to focus in, of course, on our great state and on what's going on here and what narrative we can share about the nature of volunteerism here in Florida. So, pardon me. We'll go to the next couple of slides. Most of you are familiar with the census supplement that comes out every September. And that supplement is about civic life and volunteerism in the state of Florida. Typically what happens is that raw data is interpreted by AmeriCorps, the federal agency that we get our AmeriCorps funding from and other grant funding. Because that raw data, none of us could figure that out. That is a scientific ascent that most of us are not familiar with. And the way that they have typically done that is by ranking volunteer engagement by state. And then they've had a few other indicators that they have put out. And that's typically what people have latched onto when it comes to data about volunteerism. Well, the reality is we have had a very low ranking over the last decade or so. But there are some components of that census data, although very important and scientifically rigorous, that may not capture all of the layers of what goes on here in Florida when it comes to people being engaged in volunteerism. So, you know, the unique composition, for example, of Florida. We have such a tremendously diverse state. We have so many different languages and people and subcultures. And sometimes that's hard to capture in terms of what people understand volunteering to be. We'll talk in a minute about informal versus formal volunteering. And then the methodology, you know, how the survey is delivered, the language it's delivered in, some of those components, again, scientifically rigorous when it comes to the census or other particular data, but we really wanted to look at with, you know, an incredibly reputable research institution like the University of Florida, what ways we could dive into the data. And so we have not done a study that can be compared to the census data. This is something that's separate from that. It was informed by census questions, other surveys about volunteerism, but we really crafted something we think is going to be specific to our state and most beneficial to you all. All right, so here's what we covered in the survey. Informal and formal volunteering. The formal volunteering component has lots of kind of different sections. We did a quick one or two questions about monetary and material contributions, volunteering related to COVID, barriers to volunteering, and some demographic questions. And one of the things we're really excited about is that this data has been broken down by 3 and 7 region areas of the state, as well as statewide data. So if you are in the South Florida area, you're going to have one set of data, the Central Florida area, then the North Florida Panhandle area. But then even smaller than that, we have these 7 regions. So this information is going to inform so much for you all, we really believe, and for the other sectors as well. But you'll have that data at a more granular level than what is necessarily provided by the census. So a couple things we think are going to be extremely beneficial for you all. You know, the way that you manage volunteers, all those volunteer engagement functions, supervision, onboarding, recruitment, retention, strategic planning, this data can help with thinking through how to do that in your organizations. It can inform best practices for you all. And it's, again, that accurate assessment of the civic landscape here in the state. We want to be sure that we have that. And we think there are a number of different other kind of applications for this way beyond what I've shared in this slide. So we're just thrilled, again, to be able to offer this to you all. All right, so what I want to do is start with barriers, because that's something that people often have an interest in, and then we'll go into some of the kind of more proactive components. Excuse me. of this information. All right, barriers to volunteering. And feel free to put questions or other thoughts in the chat. I am going to ask right now, just real quickly, what some of you think are some of the larger barriers for people when it comes to volunteering. So think about that for a moment, whether it's you or volunteers and what they've shared with you all in terms of what they can or cannot do. But we would love to hear if you have any thoughts about that. I believe our public chat is open. Time. Okay, not enough time. Anybody else? Age. Okay. Fear of technology. That's really good, especially for that virtual volunteering component, remote volunteering. Availability, age, cost of fuel, emotional nature of it. That's great. Can't afford to not work. You have to have a paid job, time, opportunities. Those are great. Thank you for those really good points. And I think you'll see some of that in terms of what the research revealed. All right, so reasons for not volunteering. Now, I want to make sure that you all know, and I hope that the kind of preamble, that introduction component that I shared was helpful for you. We really want everyone to understand where this research came from and have a little bit of that background so that it's used appropriately and most accurately. So thanks, I did want to say, for bearing with me on that. Ooh, language, no one asked. Those are good. All right, so here we go. Did not have enough free time. And this is really where the potential for remote volunteering comes in. It can be phone calls, wellness calls, for example, in your organization. It could be, hey, we would love for you on the birthday of, 30 of our clients over the course of the year, for you to call them and say, happy birthday, how can we help? How are you doing? For example. Remote volunteering doesn't always have to be on the computer, nor does it have to be complicated. We've done a couple of different trainings on that, and I'm happy to pass along resources about that, and I will certainly share some on the Media Hub. But people tend to have a very specific view of volunteering. A, it's with a formal organization. And B, it's something you do for, 3 hours every day of the week, right? They have shifts. It's going to be very time intensive. And the idea of having an hour volunteer opportunity once a week that you can do from home is certainly not something that people are familiar with or believe is available to them. So in terms of those not knowing about opportunities, in terms of the flexibility of opportunities, this is really an area we think tremendous growth has happened, certainly since the pandemic, but there can continue to be a hybrid understanding of volunteerism and an in-person type of opportunity that is shorter. It isn't necessarily episodic. And I know some of you may not feel as though those options are there for your organization, but certainly there are, again, those resources that can help you think through and brainstorm ways to kind of make some of those opportunities shorter, but still impactful for you, as well as for the volunteer. But that free time is really big. And I do want to say, for this particular question, people could pick multiple answers. So that's why you're seeing a lot of statistics, or a lot of percentages that are very similar to one another. They're kind of just a couple of tenths of a percentage off from each other, because people could click whatever they wanted to, as many as they wanted to. So concerned or limited by COVID certainly was something. We had a lot of open-ended questions. They're not included in the study that we have available online, just because some of the personal identifiers for people are sort of listed there. But really interesting, a number of the folks really were sort of ultimately indicating that they didn't have enough time, or some of these other barriers in their open-ended response. But none of these is there. health problems, physically unable, have not found a group or activity that's a good fit, didn't know how to find those opportunities, prefer to give money instead of time. These are some interesting statistics that, of course, you can look at more regionally in the data, but how are you offering opportunities that are going to be most relevant to individuals who really are interested but don't have that free time, can't necessarily drive, as somebody mentioned, because of the cost of fuel to get to your organization as frequently as they would like, because they're busy, because they don't have childcare? Are there family volunteer opportunities that you can kind of institute at your organization? So I think that those are just a couple of the implications of the barriers component. So those are those last couple of ones, which of course you can read in the study kind of in more detail. But all of those are things you can think about when you are recruiting volunteers, and even prior to that, strategically planning for volunteer impact. Okay, so a couple of our summary points. Floridians are invested in the well-being of neighbors and others in their communities. So we see so many things in the media that feel negative and discouraging, but you all know, and you see whether you're in the research field, whether you're in nonprofits, whether you're in government, you see powerful, positive things going on. And we have some statistics that really encourage that. 68.3% of individuals informally volunteer to support their neighbors. Now, this is something that can influence what types of opportunities you share and that you provide, but also how you frame those opportunities as being something that's helping your neighbor, certainly helping your community. But when we say you can make a difference, people need to know the specifics of that and how are you engaging kind of their heart as well as their mind and their actions with how you are framing what impact those volunteer opportunities are having on your organization, your clients, on the environment, animals, kind of whatever your focus area is. So these are some examples of the kinds of things that people are doing for one another. They are helping people around them that they have those relationships with. So what with that information can you do to frame and make sure that people understand that that kind of connection is available where you are serving, and that people feel like they are really connecting with what that mission is in a way that feels familiar, that has kind of that connection that a lot of people are looking for and that they find in informal volunteering, because that is about relationship as much as it is about the action, the work that they're doing. All right. So Floridians are also committed to supporting the critical missions of nonprofits and government entities. I want to say about this top type of organization that people serve with. And before I even do that, there's lots more information again in the study. This is just a highlight of a couple of the responses. So you can definitely kind of pour into more of this in the study. 47.2% volunteer with religious organizations. Now, at a mosque, at a temple, church, whatever kind of that religious entity looks like. If you happen to have kind of a religious background, spiritual background connected to a community, this is beyond ushering or something that's specific to supporting the religious organization. This is the food pantry. This is the clothing closet. So many of the types of support that religious organizations provide. And you'll see a connection to that in the next slide. But what kind of relationships do you have with the faith-based groups in your town? If you are sharing and connecting your opportunities to places like that, right, where people are serving their neighbors, they have those relationships. If you have a connection there, those parishioners, those people who belong to that faith community, may be more likely to support you, to volunteer with you, because you've partnered with that faith-based group. And that faith-based group lends credibility to the work that you're doing. Your work could be an extension of the ways in which they serve their community. So just an angle there to think about, that religious organizations are not just doing things specific to maintaining their own group, but they are in the community doing things, and you can connect to that importance that so many people place on serving with their kind of religious organization or entity. So that second one, I think, is not a surprise: social or community service organizations. And then we have educational youth service organizations. That's going to be mentoring and tutoring and so on. Civic, political, professional, or international organizations kind of rounded out those top four there. Okay, so within these types of organizations, which connects back, as I mentioned before, to those religious entities, people are collecting, preparing, distributing, and serving food. That tends to be something that's very typical at that 38.9% space. And people could select more than one for this question as well. This is what a lot of people are doing. Now, that is a wonderful thing if you are providing that, that kind of goal or work at your organization. What this also says is that the visibility of what you do, the motivation for the type of work that you do, what your impact is, what your angle is, they need to be elevated some. You know, this is, again, people's lack of familiarity sometimes with what's available out there. How can I volunteer? I didn't realize I could volunteer with this particular organization doing this type of work. Yes, I enjoy these, you know, kind of more popular ways to serve, but also I didn't know that this was available. So that, of course, speaks to recruitment. It certainly speaks to how you're articulating impact, but it is not a discouragement if you aren't in this top section. It is, I think, a way to think about what angle you have when you are presenting what your opportunities are and how they benefit the community, and making sure that that is compelling, making sure that that is well known, and how do we integrate that information into the community in ways that draw people in as volunteers to serve. So you see a couple of other bits of information there in terms of those percentages. And this study, as I continue to say, has more of those that are listed. Okay. So showing up. Who first invited you to volunteer with this activity or with this organization? All right. So I do want you all to connect the next few slides together, the next sets of information, because it's kind of an interesting weaving together of data. So a lot of people found it themselves. When we say found it themselves, that also can mean, for example, their religious organization offered that opportunity, right? It doesn't mean necessarily that they were doing hours of research trying to find the opportunity, but found it yourself could still be something that is presented to them. They just latched on or connected to whatever that particular opportunity was. Now look at that next section, that next one, a friend. Certainly we've got another organization or group, and then family member, and then a few others there. But friend and family member, if you were to combine those, not just adding them together necessarily, that wouldn't be the way to do it, but you look at those two as being kind of in that top echelon there, that top section. And that's something that's interesting, and it connects to some of the other bits of information that we've highlighted and that are coming next. So I do want to show you something. This is by our three regions. And we did do comparisons with the United States for all of the questions, but our focus is more on Florida you'll have that information should you have an interest in looking at that. No rankings, but just compared to the rest of the USA. But if you do look here, we just talked about friend, found it myself, and another group. Friend is still really high up there relative to found it myself and found it in another group. And if you look at where that's happening, it's really interesting. So in the Panhandle, more people found it through a friend than finding it themselves, or through another organization or group. So a little bit different in the Panhandle than, for example, in North Central Florida or in South Florida. A high percentage of people found it themselves in South Florida. So it's just interesting information, things to think about. This does not compose everybody in that particular area, but it certainly is interesting to look at and think about when it comes to where you are sharing opportunities for people. So we're going to stay connected to that friend component here when we go to this next one. So you saw that friend part there. Floridians deeply value the existing volunteer involvement and opinions of family members, friends, or roommates when deciding where to serve. And we saw the friend part really edged out some of the other areas like family member. And this separate question, which was reasons for that initial involvement, you saw the 44.7% family member, friend, or roommates, as I just mentioned. That's the highest there. And likely friend is the largest of those three. And then how did they first find out about the opportunity? Word of mouth. And then the second highest was a meeting or activity, which connects to that organization or group. Are you connected to social clubs? Whether it's Rotary or, if you have a Tiger Club, Economic Club, your chamber. Some of those can also be really great places to recruit volunteers. And based on this information, that is something that may generate some fruit for you in terms of engaging people. But if you think about word of mouth, that's probably coming from family members, friends, roommates, maybe coworkers. So again, we're connecting to the existing volunteer engagement from friends or family, from the people they have relationships with. And this means that your best ambassadors are your existing volunteers. They have a strong sense of the goals, for example, of your organization. Could they not necessarily rattle off the mission statement, but do they have enough information to give a 30-second description, not just of what they're doing, but how it's impacting the organization or your community? How well are they prepared to represent you? Can they be people who, if you're tabling or you're doing other kinds of activities that are representative of volunteer opportunities at your organization, or you're orienting new volunteers, those folks who are already serving with you really can have a tremendous impact on pulling more volunteers in, right? That helps cement their own kind of ownership of the work that they're doing. If they know that they're bringing other people in, bringing their friends or family members in to support a particular organization. But how prepared are your volunteers if they are talking to a friend to be able to share? Do you ask them to? Okay, that is not and necessarily something that people would automatically do. Or maybe they do, but they're sharing, again, that specific type of work that they're doing. Not necessarily, hey, here's why the work that I'm doing here matters. Here's how all the layers come together through this organization to support and strengthen our community. Give them the words to be able to share with people around them and ask them to do it. Because that word of mouth from people that they know is what's going to pull in people who have volunteered before, want to volunteer again, who aren't sure about where to volunteer. This is a really great thing, I think, to think about, especially when it comes to those new volunteers and where they're going to find those opportunities. All right, motivations for volunteering. Being asked or invited by a friend or family member. Half of individuals said that. So you see, we have a number of questions. They seem sort of similar. How, what was your connection to initial involvement in an opportunity? How you got involved specifically there, how you found the opportunity. So you're seeing a couple of threads there about relationship and connection being how people kind of move through that process of deciding where to volunteer. All right. So we've also got ease to access information about opportunities, locations, activities. That's why we have Volunteer Connect, our no-cost volunteer opportunity platform. It's kind of like having a job search board. You all post opportunities. You can do it in a number of different ways, and then people can browse for those opportunities. We've connected thousands of unique individuals over the last month when it comes to disaster relief. So we hope that you will post there. It's really easy to do, and then you can just leave it alone. And as people have interest, you can contact them yourselves. So that's an interesting one. That's the second highest. Participating with groups of friends, family members, or with other groups, right? So maybe their church does something. Maybe their kind of social entity does something. Maybe one of their professional development groups does something. So think about that and how you can engage and connect to that type of information. And again, you can look at it more specifically for your region. What does it look like? It may look fairly different from this, and you'll see a couple of the other percentages there. And I'll go to the next set here. For example, childcare during volunteer activities is not very high necessarily for this. More information about physical or mental health benefits of volunteering, not necessarily as high. Again, people could pick multiple ones for this one as well. And Ingrid, great question there. If you go, I'm just going to put our website real quickly in the chat to volunteerflorida.org. Underneath volunteer services, you'll see information about Volunteer Connect. And our search is right there on our site. It's always up. Anyone that is a 501c3 or a government entity can register. I do a tiny bit of kind of checking in on the organization, if there's a Facebook page or a website or something like that. And then you can schedule volunteers. You can ask for kind of general interest and opportunities. We do not have a cache of volunteers waiting to serve, but we do ongoing promotion of Volunteer Connect so that people know that this is a place across the state to go and find opportunities. And we need you all to post so that those opportunities are there. It gives people a sense of the range of ways that they can serve. Again, they may have one or two ideas in their head. Maybe it's a soup kitchen, supporting persons experiencing homelessness, and then it's the tutoring and mentoring. But you have a way for them to serve and plug in that they didn't even realize. So it's something to think about. All right, so this next section, again, how are you framing the work that you do? How are you sharing throughout the volunteer process the importance of that work? And are you connecting to some of these reasons why people volunteer? We have those motivations, and Floridians volunteer for a variety of reasons, particularly because it enriches their lives, brings them joy, and impacts their communities. Again, how are we conveying that information, not just when it comes to recruitment, but throughout the process? Hey, Jane, for example, here's how the work that you did yesterday when you came in just really brought encouragement or really affected our ability to reach our goals. How are you sharing that kind of information with people? And how often are you sharing that kind of information with people? Contributing to the community. Again, what's that narrative that you're sharing that's more specific, again, than you can make a difference, or, deeper than maybe the number of hours that volunteers served or the number of people that volunteers served. What's their satisfaction as they move through the volunteer process with you? Would they like more staff interaction? Do they feel like, they're kind of taken for granted? Do they want to connect with other volunteers? Maybe it's facilitating a way for volunteers because they're doing kind of more individualistic work to get together and spend time together. So these are interesting to look at. People could pick multiple. You'll see, again, a lot of those are really close in number. You want to help those in need, pay it forward, cause they personally believe in, use their skills and experiences in a hands-on way. There's two sides to that. Some people really want to use their skills and abilities to make an impact. Some people do not want to use those particular skills that they use all week long volunteering. If you're an accountant, you may very well want to do maybe financially support, or not financially support, but do accounting support for an organization, maybe be on the finance committee for the board. But you may just want to foster a pet, or you may just want to do a particular type of work that's not connected to your professional work. But a lot of people do want to do that, 46%. Connecting with like-minded people, that's connection and relationship again there. So a number of different reasons why people volunteer, but that meaning for them, connecting that meaning is so important. As you can see with the enrichment of lives, the contributing to the community, causes that people personally believe in. It's both the head and the heart, as I mentioned before. Okay, so what I want to do quickly is just ask if there are any questions that people might have about the research. As I mentioned before, on our website, or I hope I mentioned before, if I hadn't, I apologize about that. The full study with all of the regions is available online on volunteerflorida.org. We just sent out a big newsletter about that. You can also, I'm going to pull it up here, see a survey overview report. It's sort of our takeaways. And that report is great to send along to people. When you're talking to senior management, when you're speaking out in the community, there are a number of these statistics that may be helpful for you to share, to have kind of research backing what your plans are when it comes to volunteer engagement. So I'm going to show you real quickly some of this information that I'm talking about. And then again, if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat. Okay, so we're going to switch our screen here. Okay, there we go. All right, so this is our website. And you can see here, downloading the Nature of Volunteerism in Florida report. You can do that. Here's the Volunteer Services tab. I know this is probably a little small. I can make it a little bit bigger, I think, for you all. That Volunteer Services tab, that's where you find Volunteer Connect. And again, right here on our page, people can search for opportunities. Right now, we have some emphasis on Hurricane Ian volunteer opportunities, but people can click and look at all opportunities that are available on the website. They're going to be able to look at your organization, whatever kind of mission information you want to put there. You can put your logo, where the opportunity is. There's plenty of filters there, and then the actual opportunity. So there's a number of different kind of features when we talk about the forward-facing platform, and the volunteer account as well has a number of great features for volunteers. So we have, again, under volunteer services, the survey report information. There it is. You can download that takeaways report, which is just a shorter PDF, and then the full thing is listed here. You are welcome to copy and paste information. You'll see the University of Florida, you'll see information about the researcher. That's actually the very last page, Dr. Tracy Johns, who did a wonderful job through the Survey Research Center at the University of Florida. She's the director of that. But we do want you to just reference that it's a University of Florida study minimally. That would be helpful for people to understand where this research came from. But you're welcome to utilize any of the detail in it. So you can have a download of both of those things. It's over 100 pages long, but plenty of data that we think will be beneficial to you all. So lots of detail on our website about our grant opportunities, other resources. This is, again, my kind of area in terms of volunteer services. Our previous convening, the one in 2020, as well as the one we had in 2021 last fall, all of that is here. You are welcome to use and look at those recordings for free. We try our best to give you information that will be useful for you all as you continue to engage volunteers. So I'm going to stop my screen share real quickly here. Just go back to the camera. So will the slides be? Absolutely. Hi, Greg. Slides will be available. And I will post all of those in the Media Hub, any slides from presenters as well as handouts, any of that information. And that will be available for a month following the convening on website, on this particular website that is hosted by Big Marker. After that, we will have the recordings on the website, but we may not have all of those handouts. That's something we really wanted to kind of emphasize for the people who actually registered. So I'll be sending an email again with a lot of this information, but this will be posted over the course of the week. So I'm going to give you guys a little time before our 11 a.m. with Barry Atland. If you need to go to the bathroom and get something to eat or drink. But I really appreciate your time. And I do apologize about my voice. I know it's a little kind of hoarse sounding, so hopefully that wasn't too grating on anyone. But we really are thrilled about this research. There's more questions, more information, but I did want to give you all kind of an overview of what this looks like. And if you all have any questions when it comes to how to utilize this research, any of the background, really anything connected to this work or our resources, please feel free to email me. I just put it in the chat. And also, again, thank you to those of you who are not necessarily in our state for being here. And I hope that you continue to participate in the convening, all of you, over the course of the week. We just have so many different information that will be available, and I think you all will really benefit from it. Let's see, remote opportunity examples. Yes, I will be posting that kind of information, Mariana, in the Media Hub over the next couple of days. So keep checking there for articles and details that may be beneficial to you as you think about hopefully incorporating remote opportunities into your volunteer programming. All right, thank you all so much. Really appreciate having you, and we hope you join us at 11. Thank you.